Alrighty, we are back for Roundtable Dolphins, episode 7. I am once again joined by my co-host Billie Melissa, and we are here to talk all about Dolphins football. Um, First and foremost, the Dolphins have been quite busy, and they are nearly done filling out their coaching staff. New head coach Jeff Hafley announced that. He said that they would be releasing that full list very, very soon, and that's good news because then they can transition into evaluating talent for the draft, figuring out if they can even sign anybody in free agency because their cap situation is a big old mess. But we'll see what happens.
Miracles happen.
I'm fully expecting they are not going to be doing anything but trading players, but we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
They have those core players. I don't really know, to be honest. I'm kind of seeing. I'm kind of waiting to see what John Eric Sullivan is going to do as GM. I will fully have faith in him if he pulls off some sort of magic and the Dolphins are able to get anybody. But we'll see. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to be dumping contracts. I think they're going to be adjusting contracts because 2027 is going to be more that year than it is 2026. But I don't.
Yeah. Hey, look, he's got a lot to figure out. We need to give him some grace. But if he can do those magic things, sometimes they do. Sometimes miracles come through. Sometimes sneaky trade situations get done. And so we'll see. We'll see. We'll trust him.
Yeah, we will see it, but I mean, again, if he can pull off some magic, more power to him. But moving right along, the Dolphins, which we already discussed previously, promoted Bobby Slowik, the former senior pass game coordinator, to offensive coordinator. Sean Duggan is now the defensive coordinator. He was a linebackers coach for Jeff Hafley on the Packers, as well as
Yeah.
co-defensive coordinator for Jeff Hafley when he was at Boston College as head coach. Excuse
hmm
me. Over here coughing. And then Chris Tabor was introduced as special teams coordinator, and he comes over from the Buffalo Bills. So all three of those guys were introduced to the media officially, and all three had a lot to say. I want to jump right into what Bobby Slowik had to say about the offense, specifically what he had to say about Tua Tagovailoa, because as we
hmm
discussed multiple times over, the Dolphins are running out of time and they need to figure out what the hell they're going to do with Tua.
They are. Time is running out, and that's the big bill that you got to figure out.
It's the biggest bill. It's $99.2 million dead cap
That's what you
hit.
get for getting ahead on you guys. Got to
You
see
know,
how it goes. I know it's a bit with this like quarterback market and how crazy those contracts get, and I know people try and do it sooner to kind of prevent the pricing, but sometimes you just have to hang back and see because now look where you're at.
yeah, clearly, I mean, at the time, I understood for the most part why they gave him a big contract. I mean, he led the league in passing yards, he led the league in passer rating,
hmm
completion percentage. I mean, I get it, but
Things happen.
I also didn't believe that he deserved that big of a contract. I think they should have exercised a little bit more caution, but whatever. It happened. It is what it is. It's here now. And now you have a decision to make. John Eric Sullivan has a decision to make. The Dolphins organization has a decision to make. Do you cut Tua as a post June 1st designation, in which case that 99.2 million gets spread over the next two seasons? You take the big chunk of a hit this season. 2027 is a little bit easier to deal with. Or do you keep him on roster and you wait for 2027? That number comes down significantly. Or do you find somebody to trade with that is, let's just say it's stupid enough to get that contract and bring him on board, which I don't know. I don't know.
Some people do make some silly decisions. We've said that before, there could be a team out there who is just willing to do that. I think Soak was really kind about Tua in that press conference, kind of gave him a lot of kindness, said like he was very graceful about being benched throughout and he likes Tua as a person. But obviously, just liking someone as a person isn't enough to go win a championship. I think I don't really know what the best decision is. Maybe keep him around, have him on the bench for next season, cut that bill in half. If you really do believe that 2026 isn't going to be the season for you guys to kind of come back and it's going to be more of a rebuild situation, do you really want to be that urgent about getting rid of him? I'm not sure if a team isn't willing to take him off your hands.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I don't believe that they should cut him right now, just because then
Mm-mm.
you have somebody that could potentially come in as a relief, and potentially string together some wins. Because right now the Dolphins are kind of in limbo in terms of who is going to be under center, who's going to be the quarterback. You don't really know. It's kind of a it's a guessing game at this point. But
Let me
uh,
tell you, Dolphins, if you can't get Malik Willis, I got a guy for you. He's in the Pro Bowl right now. His name is Joe Flacco. He has a
yeah,
Super Bowl MVP. He's got a Super Bowl ring. He's been around the block and he can fit in anywhere.
I don't. Please don't do that, Dolphins. Please don't. I would rather have a questionable Tua than an old Joe Flacco on the roster. But
Look, the stories,
I
think of
mean,
it.
they're
His
gonna go.
last season comes to Miami.
I mean, they're going to go for some veteran player, I'm sure, whether that's Malik
For
Willis or
sure. Yeah.
otherwise. They have to because you right now you have Tua, who obviously I don't believe is going to play another down for the Dolphins, regardless of what we just said about him being on the roster. I still don't think that's going to happen. But then who's your other option? Quinn Ewers. He had 3 games playing, and I don't know. Jeff Hafley said there's going to be competition, and Bobby Slowik said there's going to be competition. Going back to what you were saying about him praising Tua in the press conference, he obviously said he obviously he offered some coach speak on the situation. He said, quote, there's a lot of new coaches that have to get to know the team. So even getting to the point where we're able to talk about who's going to be here, how are we going to do this? Like we haven't even got anywhere remotely close to that, with the exception of knowing that we're going to try to push competition as often as we can at every single spot. End quote. He didn't really say what the plan is because I don't think he knows. I don't think anybody quite
No.
knows exactly what's going on with the Tua situation. He did say, yeah, it was a difficult year for him without a doubt, for a lot of reasons. And I think that what jumped out at me was his grace that he handled it with, the way he went about his daily routine through the season. He said there's strong human beings out there. And some of the things that athletes every year you hear comeback stories come back for him are incredible. So absolutely, I think Tua can absolutely bounce back. I think that's like one of the great things about sports. Again, he may have praised Tua. He may have said that Tua can come back, but he did not say if that was going to be for the Dolphins. So
He did not. And I don't really know what the best I think you've really kind of just got to think about what type of season you want to have in 2026 and roll with that. And maybe they don't know yet. Maybe they're not sure if they can figure it out in time for the next season. And but like you said, if Tua, I don't think Tua is going to want to put his body on the line for this team after the way they've handled the situation.
no,
I don't know if having a new GM and head coach might sway him into feeling a different type of way. But when you've kind of severed ties with the guy that, you really did put a lot of faith into at the beginning of his career, and then suddenly you don't want him anymore, you don't want his talents, and also you've put his body through it over the last few years. That's not a great relationship to have. So it would be really good if they can mend that relationship, but I'm not blaming Tua if he doesn't want to come out there next season.
I agree. And why would he? Why would he? You got benched for a rookie quarterback with 3 games left in the regular season. Granted, you were having a terrible season. At one point he was leading the league in interceptions. His deep ball just suffered even more. It was already like minimal to begin with. But he put his body on the line, multiple concussions, all the things that happened to him, and then to have that happen. And he did say uh, months ago that it would be dope if he got another chance elsewhere. And I would fully hope that Tua would get another chance elsewhere
Yeah.
because I respect him as a quarterback. I think he had some great moments there. I think he can bounce back too, but I don't think that it's going to be with the Dolphins at all. But speaking of Quinn Ewers, Bobby Slowik also kind of gave some coach speak about what it might look like if he's going to come back and be competing for that starting job. Um, but he said, "quote The fun thing about Quinn when we were with him last year is just how much he was able to grow. I think everybody just saw that in the last few games he played at the end of the year. He grew every game. You could see him getting better, taking steps every game. He's got to continue to do that in the offseason program, and I'm excited to get him back. He's fun to work with and see what happens and see where it goes. Again, more coach speak about what the situation could or could not be. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's saying very little and not saying anything at all. It's just
Right,
like, guys,
right.
we really don't know. To
Yeah,
be honest with you, but we that doesn't sound good. So
no, I don't. Again, it's a very big question. I don't know what they're gonna do with Quinn Ewers, but the bottom line is Quinn Ewers is on a rookie contract, so you're gonna have him on the roster regardless. Again, unless somebody wants to trade for him and give the Dolphins like a 4th round pick, then why would you not? Go for it.
mm,
Good, sure.
why
But
not?
again. If you do that, you have nobody else on the roster apart from Tua. So then you have to go get that veteran player. Where Joe Flacco, I don't know, but obviously because
Hey,
of
look, put some respect on that man's name. He's been
look,
around
I
the block.
sure years ago I would have Joe Flacco. Why not? Okay, great. Not now. No, thank you. I no disrespect to
Oh,
Joe Flacco. It's just
not even for a rebuild year.
no,
Oh,
I'm good.
bless
I would rather
him.
you put Quinn Ewers out there just because then you get a year to see what he can really do. He hasn't had a full
That's true.
He's had 3 games. It's not a full season, anywhere near a full season, even half a season. You give him whatever, and then
Yeah,
then you start looking at the situation. We talked about it before. The Dolphins have already been connected to Ty Simpson. I don't know. They're at number 11 overall. He's supposed to go somewhere between the 10 and 15 spot. Maybe they take a flyer on him, but then you have a second year player who's still considered a rookie, really, in Quinn Ewers, and then you have another
yeah,
rookie quarterback. So it's like you still need to go get that veteran. So right now, it's they're in a weird situation quarterback wise. I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't really see a clear path for them right now. Um,
no.
they've been connected to Malik Willis multiple times over because you have, I think it's the quarterback coach that now joined from the Packers. That's now, no, excuse me, Nathaniel Hackett took the offensive coordinator position. So now the Dolphins need a new quarterback coach. But that aside, the clear connections between Jeff Hafley,
Yeah,
the clear
John
connections
Eric Sullivan.
John Eric Sullivan. I don't know. I don't know that the Dolphins can afford to go get Malik Willis because he's going to demand a pretty sizable contract.
Yeah.
Um, People were comparing it to Justin Fields. Let me see what his contract was. So he got a 2-year, $40 million contract from the Jets. And obviously that didn't work out. But I don't think that Malik Willis would demand that much, but he would probably be somewhere in the range of maybe two for 30 million
Yeah,
ish.
I mean it's not as high as Fields, at least I don't think.
No.
But when you've got no money to play with, I think it makes the most sense. I think it's the thing that if they really do want to kind of start building their next year roster and they don't really want to have to think about quarterback next year, that makes the most sense for them. But again, it really is just where is that money coming from and how can they kind of, have they got the guys to trade out for that?
Yeah, and yeah, that's exactly it, is the money right now. The Dolphins do not have any, and they're gonna have to do a whole lot of things to even see if they can even, well, they got to get out of the red. That's just standard. Everybody has to by, I believe, March 5th. Can't remember when the league year starts, somewhere around there. But
Yeah.
they need to get out of the red. There's multiple big contracts that they need to figure out. Tyreek Hill is one of them. Are they going to bring him back? Does he want
Yep.
to come back? Is he going to get cut? If he gets cut, how much of that cap hit do they have to take? That's a big one. But there's a lot of what if scenarios right now. Simply put, the Dolphins don't have a lot of money to play with already. So I don't know that they can go and get Malik Willis. I don't know. It would be, again, this is all the magic of John Eric Sullivan. What can he do? What can he do
Hmm.
contract wise? Move some money around to where the Dolphins are able to bring him in, and would Malik Willis even want to come over? We don't know. Would he want to come to the Dolphins? Maybe he will because they'll be like, look, if you come over, you're going to be the starter. And he's like, okay, you know.
Yeah, that could be the only. I think that's the only way in which that you're getting Malik Willis over there is kind of promising him that upgrade. But I'm sure there are actually many teams that can do the same for him that are just as attractive candidates and that would fit in with him. But having that established relationship, it makes sense that he would kind of head over there. But yeah, I mean, I think it would be a great fit if John Eric Sullivan can make that magic happen.
Definitely. And, going into the offensive plan, Bobby Slowik talked a little bit about it, and he did say so in terms of like he was asked if his offense is going to look like Mike McDaniel's. He kind of laughed at the question, but then he answered. He said the bones are the same, the roots are the same, but all the trees grow different. A lot of that has to do with the players you have on your team, which changes so much year to year. He comes from the same Shanahan tree. He comes from the same kind of system. Um,
Excuse me, sorry.
no, you're good. You're
We'll
good.
sneeze that. You said trees and I had
And I'm over
allergy.
here coughing too. Jeez, what's going on with us? Anyway,
It's winter. Be grateful.
let me get
Be
that out. Okay,
gracious.
anyway, sorry. So he did say that's going to be a similar offense. Obviously, saying that it matters with the players that they have, which makes sense because again, We don't know what this Dolphins offense is going to look like. We have no
Yep.
clue. No clue right now. You have an
Nope.
idea. They did say that Jalen Waddle and Devon Achan are your building blocks, which sure. And then you have Austin Jackson potentially coming back. You have Patrick Paul. You have Aaron Brewer, who was up for Protector of the Year. You have that really
Hmm.
good core offensive line. You have that running back. You have Jalen Waddle. There's some core pieces there, but then everything else is kind of up for evaluation, and you don't know. But that being said, maybe that's also a deciding factor of hey, Malik Willis. We have a similar offense to what Mike McDaniel was trying to run with Tua. Tua had his limitations. With you in the building, we think this thing could be really good. And then maybe that's a
Hmm.
selling point for Malik Willis as well.
It's a nice sales pitch, that's for sure. No one's saying no to a Mike McDaniel's
I
offense.
mean, when it worked great. 2023, the Dolphins
Absolutely.
were insanely good on offense, best offense in the league, and then obviously we saw what happened. But regardless of that, those are some selling points. And Bobby Slowik worked with the team, before, and the bones are there, as he said.
Yep.
The structure is there, so you know I think having a dual threat quarterback like Malik Willis, I think the Dolphins offense could be back to where it was before, especially because you have Devon Achan, who was insanely good in 2025 and has only gotten better, and he's still young. This is going to be his fourth year, I believe, in the league, so he's
Hmm.
relatively young. You have that workhorse running back already, and you still got Jalen Wright. You still got those other guys that are on the team as well, those young up and comers. Obviously, there's some work to do on the offensive line. Jonas Savanea was the worst guard in the league. So you have to figure some parts out. But the
Yeah.
core of it
Because in
there,
order to get that, sorry, you go ahead.
no, 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 go ahead.
I was going to say, in order to get that run game working, and that seems to be the focus, he amplified that in the thing, saying he thinks that teams around the NFL, the best thing that they're doing right now is running the ball. You can't just rely on that one guy. You kind of need, and I think that that's great for Malik Willis because we saw in when he played the Ravens, he was a great runner. He could get off the line. He was really good at that. But you do kind of need someone to back up that. If that is going to be your focus, I don't think you can just do that with one guy. So we got to look at running back position and kind of who can we come in behind that, or is it Malik Willis who can kind of come in and be that running quarterback?
Yeah, definitely. That's hitting the nail on the head. But yeah, I mean, Devon Achan, Jalen Wright, Ollie Gordon, all three, the Wright and Gordon are we saw some flashes of brilliance from them in 2025, so we'll see if they can continue that. But the core is there. The offensive line core is there. Like I said, there's still some work to be done, and they should be doing that year
Hmm.
after year. John Eric Sullivan preached building through the trenches. So did Jeff Hafley, and so did Sean Duggan. All three of them. I mean, that's what every coach says, and that's been the issue for the Dolphins over multiple seasons. Is they keep saying that, and then they never do it. So that being said, stop just saying that and do that. So,
Hey, look,
but
things are new around the building. We got new guys who might believe, who might say what they believe and believe what they say. And I think, that's the dream, isn't it? You find those guys. But like you said, there's so many factors of this. They're really coming into some chaotic mess. And I think that the draft is going to be their best friend for getting those guys who can kind of come in, slot in, particularly on offense. Um, and a little bit on defense too. I just think you kind of got to pick some guys to kind of come in and be the next generation of the Dolphins.
definitely. And I mean, I have a lot of faith in John Eric Sullivan just because of obviously he was with the Packers organization for 20 years and Packers have always been consistently good. So you see the
Yep.
roadmap there. You see the building blocks of blueprint and you implement that into the Dolphins immediately. And they've always been good talent evaluators. And John Eric Sullivan was a major part of that. He was a college scout and he was all of that until he got into being the vice president of player personnel. And now he's a GM for the Dolphins. So I have a lot of faith that he's going to be able to draft well. So, but then the question becomes, you know, are you targeting? Should you just target line, and that's on both sides, defensive and offensive line. Not
Yeah.
just the offensive line, but mainly the offensive line. Um, you got to go out there and you got to get some. You in the first round, in the second round, the third. I don't. They have the number 11 overall pick, and they have number 43 in the second round, and then they have three third-round picks. So they're really in a good spot to get those upper echelon players. We know that there could be gems anywhere in the draft, but in terms of like the overall talent, is usually the ones that are coming from the third and above. So, you know,
Yeah. And that's his specialty. That's why he was around Green Bay for a long time, you know. So he's coming over and bringing those skills over. And I think maybe that will, you know, I think you said in the past that they've not necessarily done so great with that. So maybe this will be a year that they kind of get it together in the draft and they figure out who the best guys are to build around what's next. I think that they're going to have a long-term plan. They're not building for the next season, like we've kind of mentioned over and over. They're going to have to think about the pieces of the puzzle. And I think that they've actually got to think much further along than a lot of other teams, like the Rams, like we were just talking about. You know, they're really putting together something that a lot of other teams aren't dealing with right now.
yeah, and that I mean that's what comes with a full reset. The Dolphins needed a full reset. They haven't done a full reset in over 10 years. Obviously, they were just floating along in mediocrity until Mike McDaniel came aboard. In the first two seasons, they went to the playoffs, but then we saw what happened. Injuries decimated this team. You got to really focus on the trenches, especially because of that reason. Get those second, third tier players that need to step up and can still play well for your team. And again, I've been saying this for so long. Offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. Freaking
Get
fix.
back to fundamentals. You got to
Yes.
don't have that down. You don't have anything because if you're not protecting your quarterback, you're not giving room for the run A-chan to kind of get it going. Then like you've got nothing.
Get 100%. And this like I think 2016 was the last time they had a really good offensive line. This season they didn't have a terrible offensive line, but again, Sabanea brought that whole unit down. We'll see what happens with him, but he was a very very bad starting left guard that they kept in the game because they had to keep in the game, which again proves the point of like you don't have anybody else and this rookie
Yeah.
is really bad and you're still letting him stay out there. That's the issue that the Dolphins have had, continue to have, and hopefully with Hafley and John Eric Sullivan and the rest of the coaching staff, they can go, okay, guys, let's do this the right way. So, you know, there's a lot
That's
to
a big
work,
ask.
a lot of work to be done. There's so much work to be done on this Dolphins
Yeah.
team, and it starts with the trenches. Believe it or not, it does. Believe it or not,
No,
it
it really
does.
does. You do really need that foundation that just works, and it is just at least that there's something that they can't get through. Because if you can keep your team on the field, if you can keep the offense on the field and keep another team's defense off or another team's offense off, then you know that's one way to deal with it, or the vice versa on the defense. So like you really do just have to have that rock solid foundation that you know you can always trust and rely on. But it's easier said than done.
Definitely. And not just harping on the offensive side of the ball, but the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, the Dolphins have talented players there, their core players on defense as well. You got Jordan Brooks, who is the lead tackler. You got Bradley Chubb. You got Zach Sealer, Chop Robinson, Jordan Phillips. You have some good people there. Minka Fitzpatrick, he was hurt towards the end of the season, but you still have him. Rasul Douglas came aboard and had a breakout bounce back year. Jason Marshall Jr. is there. Like you have some really good core players, and you can get things going. And Sean Duggan was now promoted to defensive coordinator. Jeff Hafley already said that he's calling plays, but still Duggan is going to be there to be his right hand man on defense. And he also talked about the trenches, but he talked a little bit about what the
They
defense
love
can.
them trenches.
But they better start building the
They like
trenches.
talking about
Right,
them.
right. But he had his press conference as well on along Bobby Slowik and Chris Tabor. Um, and they talked about buzzwords and he talked about like what is the defense really going to look like, and he brought up how it's going to look to be multiple. So he said, I think not to say the same, but we want to be multiple. We want to fit to the strengths of our players. We want those guys to go out there and play fast, know what they're doing, and just go play 100 miles per hour. So I think you build it like that. The teaching is simple, but there's levels to it. There's details to it. They can go play as fast and as violent as they can. You got to be multiple in this league and present different looks of the offense, or it's going to be potentially a long day. Now, this is significant because Brian Flores, when he was leading the Dolphins, had what was known as the amoeba defense, which it was a kind of mixture where they were changing coverages all the time. And so you don't just have a base 3-4 and you stick to that. You kind of switch from 3-4 to 4-3 and you kind of throw a bunch of looks at opposing offenses. And the Dolphins defense was really good because of that. They
Mhm.
kind of did something similar under Anthony Weaver, but it's good that he said that. It's good that they're going to keep doing that instead of just remaining a base 3-4 and then seeing what they do on defense. Because you got to go out there and you got to mix things up. And they have the players right now, a good core of players at least, to be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And with a defensive minded head coach, that's really something that you're going to be thinking about and looking at. And did we say he is playing, calling his own plays?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Hafley announced in his press conference that he would be calling plays, but obviously Sean Duggan has been with him for 8 seasons now, and he's going to be his right-hand man, helping on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and that's again like a chemistry situation where they've been there, they've been through it, they know what they're doing, and they're going to have a solid idea of what to do. And I think, like we said for other teams, like the Ravens obviously picked a defensive-minded head coach, and we've seen what good defense can do. And this, isn't to say anything about Seattle's offense because it's great, but like Seattle's defense this year really is kind of what carried them through the league. And I think we are seeing a resurgence of that being a really big part of the game again. And so if you can just get that dominant defense, which can just simply get offenses off the field, if they can't score, they can't win. So, good
Yep.
place to start.
Yeah, and Duggan went a little bit further on that as well. He said, "Yeah, I believe the game always starts up front. I think that's the beauty of football. It's always been that way to me. It starts with stopping the run, staying square, playing your gap. You should be able to see a guy's numbers in his nameplate, taking away space for the offense, and then up front when it comes to the pass game, everything works together, right? The D line has got to get pressure on the quarterback, and then we've got to cover in the back end." He did bring up ESPN Classic and how you would be able to watch games from every era. And it was
Hmm.
interesting because it's like, oh, is he studying old defensive schemes and then he's going to use that to kind of bring in the new style, blending with the old style? I don't know, but it sounds exciting. And again, you can say trenches, trenches, trenches all day, but unless you actually do it, you're just talking. So I like the self awareness because Jeff Hafley said that, John Eric Sullivan said that, Sean Duggan said that. They all simply said, like, look, you can say trenches, and then they all alluded to the fact that, like, yeah, we're just talking right now, but until you
Yeah.
put that product out on the field, you don't really know. So I mean, that's the thing. There is, yeah, like we're saying, trenches, 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 but go and build those trenches then.
Yeah. And he also spoke about having to be adaptable and, you can't just have like one style of playbook. And I think, at least that they're being realistic about what they have to do in this next season. Um, Again, like it's so hard with the off season because you really don't know. Like you go into a season, you think their team's gonna be great, you think a team's gonna be poor. You just don't know. And so they can say what they want, but like you said, they gotta actually deliver on what they're saying.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's that's the way it is. Just stop talking and start acting.
Deliver, give us the guys, start signing, make some magic happen.
Yep.
Give us something to be excited about. Come on.
I mean, honestly, it's exciting because of the way in which people have been talking about Jeff Hafley as a
Yeah.
coach. Former players are like, this guy is the guy. And the good thing, I know we talked about it previous, he wasn't a head coach in the NFL, but he was still a head coach. The Dolphins have been very generous in giving coordinators their first crack at being a head coach, and it's not worked out thus far. So this was kind of the first time in a while that they gave a head coach another chance to be a head coach. Granted, he was head coach at Boston College, but he was still a head coach. But regardless of that, there's been a lot of excitement for Hafley and Chris Tabor, who was the former Buffalo Bills special teams coordinator, jumped over and joined the Dolphins on Jeff Hafley's staff and had nothing but great things to say and said the reason for his jump from AFC East team to AFC East team, especially the Dolphins, was because of Hafley and the way that he coaches. So it's very exciting. And especially because Tabor had the special teams ranked ninth in 2025 per
Hmm.
PFF, which is great. Top 10 unit. Awesome. Guess where the Dolphins were? Just take a guess.
Somewhere way down.
Way down is right. They were 28th. They were ranked.
Not
So
32 though.
no, but I mean, so
Almost.
Danny Crossman, who's been a long time special teams coordinator. Again, the Dolphins have just swam the waters of mediocrity. In 2022, they were ranked 32nd. 2023, they were ranked 29th. 2024, they were ranked 31st. And then 2025, they were ranked 28th. So that being said, good, you know.
Only you can only go up from there.
So you
I
got,
mean,
but you can only go up from there. You're near the
there's
bottom.
two spots beneath
You're
you
near the
can
bottom in
have.
the last 20, what is that, 4 seasons? You're near the bottom
Yeah.
or near the bottom. So, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of, there's still a lot of questions. What are the Dolphins going to look like? We're going to keep talking about that until the cows come home because that's what it's going to be. We don't know what the roster is going to look like. We don't know who they're going to go draft. We don't know if they're going to get anybody in free agency or let anybody walk. But they have some good core players. They have a really exciting new head coach and a new exciting staff. They have a new exciting general manager, a new exciting front office. There's a lot to be excited about, but it's still a lot of questions. So the point
Yeah.
being, the hope for Dolphins fans, the organization, is to get out of that level of mediocrity, to go above that. And do I think that's going to happen in 2026? I don't think so because of the mess that they have right now. But we don't know. There's teams that have gone. I saw the Dolphins go 1-15 and then go 11-5 the following year. So
It happens.
it
It
happens.
happens. There are things open. And I will say about Chris Tabor, I think it's really important to place importance on special teams. I mean, we saw this year how like so many just random like blocked field goals, so many missed like or messed up punts that just completely changed the momentum of the game. And so, if you've got the guy who's up there in the top 10, I think that that's a really great place to start. If you can just get those like momentum changes just in between the like, switching offense and defense, like that's a really great place to start.
I mean, look at the Rams. The Rams had a terrible special teams, and you could
Exactly.
you could put some blame for the season on them or whatever. They fired their special teams coordinator, got a new one because it's not
And
it
they didn't wait
regard
till the end of the season to
as
figure that
yeah,
out either.
as important as offense and defense is, special teams is as important, and we've seen that because especially the way that kickoffs are going and the way that the dynamic kickoff and all that,
Yeah.
it matters so much more now than it has before. In the sense of that, you got a game plan for that. So going from a bottom dwelling unit to potentially a top 10 unit, that's exciting. And again,
Yeah.
a lot of exciting elements there. We'll see. We'll be back next week to talk more Dolphins football. Obviously, we're early February. We're a little bit more than a little bit less than or a little bit more than a month away from free agency. At which point we'll see what happens with the Tua situation, with all the other contract situations, the Dolphins. But right now, we'll probably be back next week to talk about the full coaching staff list because Jeff Hafley did say that it's almost complete. And then we'll go from there. But we'll see.
We will see. It's the common off-season situation. We will see.
Yep. Full reset. We will see. But this has been Roundtable Dolphins episode 7, I think I said it was.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I'm right. We will be back next week. Thank you, Billy, for joining me once again. And yeah, we'll see.